It was a cold night on the outer moon station, a place where no one came unless they were running from something. John lived there alone. He was a human mechanic who fixed old ships for people who never gave their real names. He didn't ask questions. He liked his quiet life. The stars above looked sharp and silent. His small home buzzed with the sound of machines. Outside, strong winds howled like wolves in the night. Suddenly, at midnight, someone knocked. Not loud, just a soft tap. John looked up from his table. No one ever knocked on his door. Not at this hour. He reached for his old plasma cutter. It wasn't much, but better than nothing. Another knock, this time weaker. He slowly opened the door. A figure stood there in the darkness, thin, shaking, wearing torn cloth over silver skin. Her long hair was messy, her eyes wide but tired. She looked up at him and whispered with cracked lips, "I'm hungry." And then she fainted. John caught her before she hit the ground. Her skin was cold. Too cold. She had bruises on her arms. He looked around quickly, but no one else was there. He carried her inside and laid her on his old repair bench. He covered her with a warm blanket. His hands moved fast, not like a soldier, but like someone who had saved too many broken things. He warmed some broth. He placed a small spoon near her lips. At first, she didn't move. But then, slowly, her mouth opened. She ate, bit by bit. Hours passed, she didn't wake up. But her breathing grew stronger. John sat near her, staring. Who was this girl? She wasn't human. Her features were soft, alien, but not from any species he recognized. And most of all, she was scared, even while sleeping. The next morning, she opened her eyes. She tried to sit up fast, but winced in pain. Our body was too weak. She looked at John and backed away like a cornered animal. John raised both hands. "It's okay. You're safe here." She didn't speak. "I found you outside. You fainted. You were freezing." She looked down at her arms. Her chains were gone. John had removed them while she slept, but the scars remained. "Do you have a name?" he asked softly. She stayed quiet. Then, after a pause, she pointed to her wrist. A broken tag was there, had a number. A093K. John frowned. "That's not a name." "That's a serial code." She looked away. "Okay," he nodded. "We'll fix that later. By now, you need food and rest." She stared at him for a long time, then slowly nodded. John brought her more broth, a slice of old bread, and a small thermal blanket. That night, she slept again, but this time she whispered in her sleep, "Torvax, please, no." John heard it. His face grew serious. He had heard that name before. Torvax, a slave trader, a war criminal, a monster. He looked at the girl again. Was she one of his victims? Outside, the wind howled louder. John stood up and checked his scanners. No ships nearby. No signals. But deep inside, he felt something was coming. This girl, she didn't knock by accident. She was running from something. And whatever it was, it might be coming here. But John didn't turn her away. He walked back to her side, sat down, and placed his old welding jacket on her for extra warmth. He whispered, "You're not a number here. You're not a slave." She didn't reply, but her fingers gently held the edge of the jacket. John looked at her again. He didn't know her story, not yet. But one thing was clear, she had no one else. And now, she was his responsibility. Kayla sat in the corner of the room, wrapped in a thick gray blanket. The heat from the small furnace hummed softly, but her hands still shook. She stared at the cup of soup John had given her, holding it tight like it might vanish if she let go. John didn't rush her. He sat on the other side of the room, cleaning old ship parts. The sound of metal tools clinking against each other was the only thing filling the silence. Every few minutes, John looked at her from the corner of his eye. She was thin, too thin. Her wrists looked like they could snap if she pressed too hard, but what disturbed him most were the scars. He had seen them when changing her bandages the night before. Burn marks, whip lines, and deep bruises. He didn't ask questions, but he wanted to. After a long pause, she finally spoke. Her voice was soft, almost broken. "You helped me," she said, without looking at him. John wiped his hands and nodded. "Yeah, you were at my door. I don't leave people to die." Kayla lowered her eyes. "Most do." He sat forward. "Not me." She looked up at him now, her green eyes full of pain. "Why?" John shrugged. "Because I was hungry once too. I know what it feels like when no one helps." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Kayla whispered, "They called me Asset 93. That was my name in the camp." John's jaw clenched. That wasn't a name. That was a cage. Kayla nodded slowly. "Torvax, he bought me at age 6. I was trained to serve, to clean, to follow. Never to speak." Her hands began to tremble again, and she held her arms tightly. "They punished me when I refused a guest," she said, voice cracking. "I bled." They laughed. John's heart burned with anger, but he kept his voice steady. "You're not there anymore." She shook her head. "A tease, looking for me. Always looking." I ran. "But I don't know for how long." "You made it this far," John said gently. "You knocked on the right door." Kayla looked at him deeply. "Do you think I'll ever be normal?" John smiled a little. "You're not normal, Kayla. You're stronger." She blinked fast, her lips tightening. A single tear rolled down her cheek, and she quickly wiped it away. "I don't cry," she said. "You just did," John replied softly. "That means you're healing." Kayla looked away, embarrassed. Crying was punished. "Not here," John said. "Cry, sleep, eat, speak. You're free now." The room grew quiet again. Kayla leaned back slowly against the wall, her body still sore. John stood and placed another blanket over her. "I'll check the perimeter," he said. "You get some rest." As he stepped outside, he scanned the sky. Empty, silent. But that silence made him nervous. He went to his scanner and checked for signals. Nothing yet, but he knew it wouldn't last. Inside, Kayla sat up and looked at the tools on the workbench. One was a broken metal arm from an old cleaning droid. She touched it with gentle fingers. Then, without thinking, she grabbed a small wire and started fixing it. Her hands remembered, even if her heart didn't trust. Minutes passed. John came back in and stopped when he saw her. "You know how to fix that?" he asked. Kayla looked up, surprised. "Yes," she said. "They trained us. To repair, to serve the guests." She handed him the repaired piece. "Done." John smiled wide. "You've got skills." She didn't smile back. "I was forced to." "Now," John said, "you get to choose what you use them for." Kayla looked down, thinking. Then she said, "I want to help. I don't want to hide forever." John nodded. "Then you're already braver than most." That night, Kayla didn't sleep on the bench. She asked for a pillow and a proper bed. John gave her his cot and slept on the floor instead. When she lay down, she stared at the ceiling for a long time. Her body still hurt, but her soul, for the first time in years, felt light. She closed her eyes and whispered one word before sleep came. Safe. The next morning came quietly, but John woke with a strange heaviness in his chest. He had slept on the floor all night, yet he didn't feel tired. Something else bothered him, a small feeling that danger was slowly moving toward them like a shadow. Kayla was already awake. She sat near the window, her knees close to her chest, staring outside like she expected someone to appear at any moment. Her eyes were softer than before, but fear still lived deep inside them. John stood, stretching his sore back. "Morning." Kayla nodded lightly. She looked guilty, like she didn't deserve a morning greeting. "You hungry?" he asked. She hesitated. "I think so." That was progress. Yesterday, she couldn't even say those words. John made a simple breakfast, warm bread and broth. Kayla ate slowly, watching the door more than the food. John finally asked, "What are you waiting for?" Kayla didn't answer at first. She just stared at her hands. "Him," she whispered. "His hunters. His ships." John leaned forward. "You're safe here." Kayla did not agree or disagree. She only said, "Torvax always finds what he thinks belongs to him." John felt anger rise inside him. "You're not his property." Kayla raised her eyes, almost confused. "Then whose am I?" John paused, then spoke carefully. "You belong to yourself." Kayla stared at him like no one had ever said that to her before. Before she could reply, a sharp beep filled the room. John froze. His scanner never beeped unless something serious was happening. He ran to the device and checked the screen. A red dot blinked rapidly. A coded transmission had passed near their moon, short, encrypted, and extremely dangerous looking. John's hands tightened. Kayla slowly stood behind him. "What? What is that?" John hesitated, then showed her the screen. "A bounty signal," he said. "A very high-level one." Kayla's legs went weak. She grabbed the edge of the table. "No," she whispered. "He found me." John looked closer at the message. It was short but clear. Target, Asset 93 escaped property reward, 75,000. Credit status, extremely dangerous capture, alive or dead. John clenched his teeth. "They're calling you dangerous. You can't even hold a spoon without shaking." Kayla hugged herself tightly. "They lie. It's what they do." He scrolled down. There was one more line, the one that chilled him the most. Last known location, Outer Moon Station, Sector 11, his station. Their home. They weren't just searching the galaxy. They were here. Kayla backed away, breathing fast. "I should go. I should leave. They will kill you because of me." John stepped toward her. "You're not going anywhere." Kayla shook her head violently. "You don't understand. Torvax doesn't stop. He doesn't forgive. I ran from him once. I won't make it twice." "You already made it," John said firmly. "You reached my door." Kayla's voice cracked. "By accident." Then it was a good accident. She stared at him, confused again, as if kindness was a strange language she didn't know how to speak. John went back to the scanner, enlarged the signal, and tried to track the origin. The message came from a ship a few light minutes away, not far. And closing in, he grabbed his old handheld blaster. It was small and rusty, but better than nothing. Kayla noticed it and stepped back. "You're going to fight them." "For me?" John shrugged. "They're coming whether we fight or not." Kayla shook with fear. "I am not worth this." John looked at her sharply. "Who told you that?" She rushed her words. "Torvax, his guards. The people who bought me and returned me. Everyone." John took a slow breath and stepped close to her. "You don't let monsters decide your value. If they come, we face them together." Kayla's lip trembled. "I'm scared." "Good," John said. "So am I, but fear means we keep moving." Kayla suddenly grabbed his arm, not in fear, but in a desperate plea. "Promise you won't die because of me." John gently placed his hand over hers. "Promise you won't run away from yourself." Their eyes met. Then, another beep. John ran to the scanner. His heart dropped. 2 ships had just entered local orbit. Kayla covered her mouth, tears welling up. "He found me." John looked at her with a fierce, determined expression. "No," he said. "He found us, and he'll wish he hadn't." Kayla's breath caught. For the first time, she believed him. Outside, the engines of alien bounty ships lit up the dark sky. Inside, Kayla and John prepared for a fight neither of them had asked for, but both of them needed to win. John didn't have a real army. He had no high-tech weapons, no armor, and no backup. But he had tools, old, dusty, and forgotten, and a heart that didn't back down. As the alien bounty ships hovered above his station, shaking the ground with their deep engines, John moved fast. He turned off all lights inside, made the windows dark, and handed Kayla a small device. If I say hide, you run to the back panel in the repair room. Crawl under the floor. Don't come out until I say so. Kayla held the tight. What will you do? John smiled a little. By you time, a loud boom hit the front wall. Dust fell from the ceiling. They were here. Kayla's breathing turned sharp. Her knees almost gave out. John placed a hand on her shoulder. You're not in that cage anymore. You're not that scared girl they used to control. Kayla looked into his eyes, and for the first time, she nodded without shaking. John turned to his workbench and grabbed his plasma cutter, a magnetic wrench, and 2 homemade shock traps. Let's make them regret landing here, he whispered. Outside, the first mercenary stepped out. He was tall, green-skinned, with red armor and yellow eyes. He scanned the area and growled. Signal is fresh. She's close. 2 more followed. One had a cannon for an arm. The other was smaller, but faster, claws like knives. They moved toward the door. Inside, John waited. He tapped a button under the table, activating the first trap. As the lead alien kicked open the door, he stepped directly onto the metal floor plate. Zop! The shock trap exploded with blue light. The alien dropped, twitching, stunned. The second one roared and charged inside, only to slip on the oil John had spilled across the hallway. He crashed into the wall with a loud crack. The third alien jumps through the window, avoiding both traps. Quick and smart. John turned and blocked the claw strike with his plasma cutter. Sparks flew. The alien hissed. You're just a human mechanic. You should have stayed out of this. John gritted his teeth. I fix broken things, and she's not broken anymore. The alien lunged. John ducked and slammed the wrench into its side. The alien screamed, but slashed back, cutting John's arm. Blood dripped, but John didn't fall. He kicked the alien backward and slammed a pipe across its face, knocking it out cold. He dropped to one knee, breathing hard. 3 down, but outside, the second ship's ramp opened. 4 more bounty hunters stepped out, stronger, armed with scanners and thermal rifles. John knew he couldn't win this fight alone. He clicked the Kayla. Now, panel. Hide. No reply. Kayla. Suddenly, a loud sound came from the back of the station. John turned, heart racing. He ran toward the sound and froze. Kayla wasn't hiding. She had opened the back hatch and was pulling out a hidden energy cell he had been repairing. It was unstable. It could explode. What are you doing? John shouted. Kayla looked at him, eyes burning with emotion. You protected me. Now I protect us. John tried to stop her, but it was too late. Kayla stepped into the hall, energy cell in hand, and faced the new wave of mercenaries. They froze. The lead alien, larger than the others, laughed. You won't blow that, girl. You're weak. Kayla's voice didn't shake. I was weak. When you had my chains, she lifted the device higher. Now I have a choice. And you. You have 5 seconds to leave. The alien's face twisted. Bluff. Kayla stepped forward. 1. The other mercenaries backed away slightly. 2. The leader raised his weapon. 3. John appeared beside her with a blaster aimed at the ceiling. I'd listened to her. The alien stared at both of them. Then he turned. Fall back, he ordered. Wrong station. Not worth the risk. The mercenaries retreated to their ship, fast. Within moments, the engines lit up, and both ships lifted off, vanishing into the dark sky. Silence returned. Kayla dropped the energy cell. Her legs gave out, and she sank to the floor, shaking. John rushed to her side. "You could have died," he said softly. She looked up, tears in her eyes. "But I didn't run." He smiled. "No, you didn't." They sat there together in the quiet room, bruised and bleeding, but alive. John looked at her and whispered, "You're not just someone I saved." Kayla blinked. "Your family now." The bounty ships were gone, but their shadows still felt heavy in the air. John patched up his bleeding arm, wincing every time he moved. Kayla sat across from him, quiet and still. Her hands were folded in her lap, but her fingers kept twitching. She hadn't spoken in an hour. John looked at her, eyes filled with concern. "You saved us," he said. Kayla didn't respond. "You were brave," he added. "You faced them, you didn't freeze." Still, no reply. John walked over, crouched beside her. "What's wrong?" Kayla finally looked at him. Her voice was low. "I didn't tell you everything." John tilted his head. "What do you mean?" Kayla swallowed hard. "Torvax didn't want me just because I was a slave. He wanted me because of what's inside me." John raised an eyebrow. "Inside?" Atea hesitated, then slowly pulled her sleeve down. A faint glow pulsed under the skin of her arm, like golden veins made of light. John leaned closer, shocked. "What is that?" Kayla's voice trembled. "When I was a child, during a war on my home planet, I was hit by a piece of fallen tech, ancient alien tech. It fused with me. Doctors tried to remove it, but it wouldn't come out. It became part of my body." She touched the glowing line. "Torvax learned about it when I was 10. That's when he bought me." John stood up slowly. "And what does this tech do?" Kayla looked scared. "It connects to machines, speaks to old systems, systems older than even human tech. It's like, I can wake things up." John's eyes widened. No wonder the bounty was so high. No wonder Torvax hunted her across galaxies. She wasn't just a runaway slave. She was a key. "You're not just important," John said. "You're dangerous to people like him." Kayla nodded. "And to everyone else, if I lose control." John stepped back, thinking. His brain moved like a mechanic tracing wires. She had connected to that unstable energy cell in seconds. She had repaired the broken drone without tools. She had felt the bounty ships coming even before the signal reached the scanner. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. "Because I didn't want you to see me as a weapon," she said. "I wanted you to see me as someone worth saving." John's voice became firm. "You're not a weapon. You're a person. A survivor." Kayla finally met his eyes. "You still think I'm family?" "Now more than ever," he said without pause. Just then, the ground beneath them rumbled. A distant hum filled the room. Kayla stood quickly. What was that? John rushed to his control panel. On the outer ridge of the moon, an old buried structure was lighting up a massive ring hidden under the soil. The signal was ancient and alive. He turned to Kayla. "Did you activate that?" Kayla shook her head. "I didn't touch anything." The screen glowed brighter. Symbols danced across it, ones John had never seen. Kayla walked toward the panel slowly. Her fingers reached out, almost like something was pulling her. As she touched the screen, the symbols stopped moving. A single message appeared. Host identified. Protocol Alpha resumed. John's jaw dropped. Kayla pulled her hand back, afraid. "I didn't mean to." John held up a hand. "It's okay. Just, what is this?" Kayla whispered. "I think it's calling me." The scanner beeped again. A new signal. This time, it wasn't a bounty. It was an invitation. A portal was forming on the moon's edge. Light began to spin in the distance. John and Kayla stepped outside, the cold air brushing their faces. In the far distance, something ancient had awakened. Kayla's eyes glowed softly. John looked at her. "Whatever this is, it's tied to you." Kayla nodded slowly. "And maybe." It's the only way to end what Torvax started. John placed a hand on her shoulder. Then let's finish it. Together? The wind blew harder. The light grew brighter. And Kayla took her first step toward the secret that could change the galaxy. The wind on the moon's surface howled louder than ever. Kayla stood near the glowing portal. Blue light spun around her like a slow storm. Her eyes, half in fear and half in wonder, reflected the strange symbols dancing in the air. Each one shimmered before fading into nothing. Behind her, John was preparing for the worst. He checked the power core in his backup drone, loaded every energy cell he had, and activated the defense grid around the station. The shields were old, but maybe they'd hold for a few minutes. Maybe. John turned and looked at her. "What is that thing doing to you?" Kella's voice was soft. "It's not hurting me. It's remembering me." "Remembering?" She nodded. "This tech, it knew me before I was born. I think it was waiting. For someone like me." John felt a chill down his back. Before he could say more, the scanner beeped, one long, sharp tone. Not a bounty signal, not a nearby ship. This one was different. He ran to the screen and froze. A warship, enormous. Torvax's personal dreadnought. The data feed showed its name in red letters. Oblivion's jaw. Kayla saw the screen and turned pale. "He's here." John didn't speak. He already knew. They had run out of time. Kayla backed away from the portal. "We should destroy it." "No," John said. "If it chose you, maybe it can help you." "I'm scared," she whispered. "So was I when I opened the door and saw you," he said. "But I didn't run." Kayla looked at him, her hands clenched tight. Her voice shook. "If I go through that portal, I don't know what I'll become." John stepped closer. "Then I'll follow you." Suddenly, the sky above cracked with fire. The Oblivion's jaw entered the moon's upper atmosphere. It blocked the stars like a black mountain. Dozens of dropships began falling from its belly like dark rain. Sirens screamed across the station. John grabbed Kella's arm. "We move now." They ran back inside. Kayla stood in the middle of the control room while John triggered every defense he had. Drones, mines, pulse fences. "This won't stop him," Kayla whispered. "It doesn't have to," John said. "It just needs to slow him down." Outside, alien mercenaries landed in packs, boots crushing the moon's rocky surface. Inside, Kayla walked to the center console. Her glowing veins pulsed brighter. She placed her hand on the control panel. Everything changed. The station lights turned white. The walls shifted, revealing hidden layers. The whole structure was ancient, not human-built, but something older, hidden beneath John's repairs all this time. Kella's eyes went wide. "This wasn't your station." John stared in shock. "Then, whose was it?" Kayla whispered, "Mine." Outside, the mercenaries opened fire. The station's new walls absorbed the blasts like thick armor. Inside, energy lines lit up the floor. A map formed in the air, not of the moon, but of the galaxy. Kayla pointed to one glowing point on the map. "This is what Torvax wants. This tech. This knowledge." Suddenly, a voice filled the room. Deep, cruel. "Kayla." It came from all speakers. It was him. "Torvax, I gave you everything." The voice growled. "Food, shelter, a name." Kayla stood tall. "You gave me chains. You belong to me. I belong to no one." The warship hovered above the station now. A beam charged beneath it, large enough to destroy the entire outpost in seconds. John stared at the screen. "We won't survive that blast." Kayla didn't move. Instead, she stepped into the circle at the center of the map. She looked back at John. "You believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself." She placed both hands on the console. The beam fired, but just before it hit, the portal burst open with golden light. It wrapped around the station like a living shield. The beam shattered on impact. Torvax screamed through the speakers. New. Kayla glowed, her body floating above the floor. She wasn't just a girl anymore. She had become the key and the lock. The entire station lifted from the ground, ancient engines roaring awake. John looked up in awe. What are you? Kayla opened her glowing eyes. I'm free. The warship Oblivion's jaw burned in the sky like a wounded beast. Its side had been torn open by a blast of golden light from the moon station. No, from Kayla. Inside the station, everything was quiet now. The lights had dimmed, the air warm and calm. But John couldn't take his eyes off her. She stood in the center of the room, floating just inches above the floor, glowing softly. The ancient tech wasn't hurting her. It was holding her, protecting her, accepting her. Slowly, she lowered back down. Her feet touched the ground. The light faded. Her breathing slowed. Her eyes, once filled with fear, were now calm. John stepped forward. Kayla, are you okay? She turned to him, smiling faintly. I'm not scared anymore. John exhaled for the first time in what felt like forever. Outside, debris from the warship rained down like broken stars. Torvax's forces had fled. The mercenaries were gone. No more gunships. No more hunting. Kayla walked to the console and pressed a few glowing points. The portal behind them slowly closed. The ancient map faded. Silence returned. It's over, she whispered. John nodded. For now, she looked around. This station, it's not just metal. It's alive. It was built by my ancestors. I felt their voices when I stood in the center. They passed it to me. John crossed his arms. So what happens now? Kayla looked down. I don't know. I was trained to obey, not to choose. John stepped beside her. Then start choosing. She smiled softly. For the next few days, they repaired the damage to the outer walls. The roof had scorch marks. The power grid needed rewiring. Drones were scattered and half melted, but they worked together. John fixed the walls. Kayla worked on the machines. Her touch made them respond faster than before. Lights flickered on the moment she reached toward them. Even broken wires reconnected when she focused. By the third day, John brought her a plate of warm food and said, "You fixed more in 3 days than I did in 3 years." She laughed, not a weak chuckle, but a full laugh. Maybe I was always meant to build, not hide. John raised his cup. To building. They toasted with warm tea. That night, Kayla stood outside, under the stars. The moon sky was clear now. No ships. No threats. Just quiet wind and distant stars. John stepped out beside her. You thinking of leaving? Kayla looked up. I thought I'd feel free when he was gone. But now I feel lost. John looked down the path that led into the hills. Being free doesn't mean you have all the answers. It just means you can find them. She turned to him. And if I leave, will I ever be welcome back? John smiled. Kayla, my door is always open. Her eyes glistened. She looked at his home, the place where she had collapsed, hungry and half dead. The place where someone had handed her food instead of chains. A place that never asked what she was worth. Just who she was becoming. I think I'll stay, she whispered. John tried to hide his smile. Good. I was running out of ways to cook soup without burning it. They both laughed. The next morning, Kayla found an old wooden box on the table. Inside, it was a small metal tag, like a nameplate. On it, engraved in clear letters, Kayla family. She picked it up gently, holding it close. She didn't cry. Not because she didn't want to, but because, for the first time, she didn't have to. Weeks passed. John built a second room. Kayla decorated it with pieces from the old ship she once escaped in. She called it her freedom corner. Drones returned to patrol the land. Scanners were always on, but the red alerts never came again. Then one evening, Another knock came at the door. John looked up, alert. He opened it. Outside stood two small alien girls, shivering, scared, and covered in dust. Behind them was a crashed escape pod. One of them whispered, "We're lost." Before John could say anything, Kayla appeared behind him. She knelt down, smiling warmly. "You're safe now." She reached out her hand. The girls took it. John nodded. Kayla looked back at him, and together they brought the girls inside.